Welcome back to a higher walkthrough of the poem Charge of the Light Brigade by Alfred Lord Tennyson. Firstly, some top tips. Most of these authors within the Power and Conflict anthology want to be deep and meaningful, throwing religious, political, or historical Easter eggs into their work. These are great pieces to pick apart and analyze, and will definitely receive the highest marks if justified correctly. I will be providing an in-depth analysis of the poem and linking it to others, so grab your notes and hot drink and let's go. Alfred Tennyson was an English poet. He was the poet laureate during much of Queen Victoria's reign. Tennyson produced one of his best-known works, The Charge of the Light Brigade, a dramatic tribute to the British cavalrymen involved in an ill-advised charge during the Crimean War. The Crimean War was fought between Russia and a group of countries including the Ottoman Empire, Britain, France and Sardinia. The war started over disputes between Russia and the Ottoman Empire about protection and the power of specific religious groups. The Crimean War is often described as the first media war. For the first time in history, newspapers carried eyewitness reports, detailing not just the triumphs of war, but the reality, the horrors and mistakes as well. The Charge of the Light Brigade is a narrative poem consisting of 6 stanzas and written in the form of a ballad. Tennyson uses a regular rhythm and repetition to mirror the relentless motion of the soldiers charging on horseback. The Charge of the Light Brigade consists of 6 stanzas of varying lengths, marked by Roman numerals. Each stanza is like a little chapter in the story of the Light Brigade and its doomed mission, though the language throughout the poem is very repetitive. The speaker relies on refrains, anaphora, and parallelism to give the poem a sense of cohesion and structure. The Charge of the Light Brigade is written in dactylic demeter. Dactyls are poetic feet with a dum-da-da rhythm, and demeter means there are 2 feet in each line. Tennyson chose this meter as it sounds like galloping horses. The meter captures the syncopated clip-clop of a cavalry charge as hundreds of horses race toward a target. Theme 1. Death, Sacrifice and Patriotism. Into the Valley of Death. The Bible verse is commonly used during funerals or by those approaching death. The message of Psalm 23:4 is one of comfort, God's presence providing strength and hope. Personifying death in this way likens it to an animal or monster capable of devouring the soldiers. It seems to be alive and waiting for them, with no chance of their escape. Despite the almost certain death that they face, the soldiers do not show fear. Their patriotism compels them to follow orders, even if futile. Tennyson uses the rhetorical question, was there a soul dismayed? Asking whether any of the soldiers were upset by the command. The soldiers' certainty and belief in their commanders contrasts with the response back in the United Kingdom. Tennyson says that all the world wondered and states the accusation that someone had blundered, suggesting that the reality of war was becoming apparent and that attitudes were starting to turn. Tennyson makes it clear that the soldiers were following their orders dutifully when they rode into the Valley of Death, demonstrating their unswerving patriotism and keeping their honor. In Charge of the Light Brigade, the portrayal of the battle resonates with notions of heroism and sacrifice. Tennyson depicts the soldiers as valiantly following orders despite the fatal consequences, evidenced by the lament, "Someone had blundered." This suggests a sense of duty and loyalty to authority, even when it leads to their inevitable demise. Conversely, Owen's Exposure offers a different portrayal of war, devoid of romanticism. Owen exposes the harsh reality of soldiers abandoned by their leaders, as reflected in the haunting rhetorical questions and the palpable sense of isolation captured in Worried Silence. Here, the poem strips away any illusions of heroism, instead revealing the grim truth of soldiers left vulnerable and unprotected in the face of danger. At the time of composing Charge of the Light Brigade, Tennyson held the esteemed position of Poet Laureate, a role closely tied to the British monarchy. Given his position, Tennyson would have been constrained in openly criticising authority figures or government actions. Consequently, his poem carries a patriotic tone and contains language reminiscent of propaganda, with words like glory, honour, and noble, contributing to a positive portrayal of war. Contrastingly, Owen's first-hand experiences as a soldier on the front lines during World War I allowed him the freedom to openly critique the realities of war in his poetry. As a result, Owen's Exposure offers a much bleaker perspective on the harsh truths of conflict. The Times newspaper's correspondent William Howard Russell used the electric telegraph to send messages from the front line. Tennyson's poem, published in 1854, coincided with a period of increasing literacy rates and technological advancements in communication, notably the telegraph. This enabled the rapid transmission of news and information, allowing the poem's depiction of a heroic yet tragic military action to reach a wide audience. The poem's portrayal of the bravery and sacrifice of the Light Brigade, despite their doomed charge, resonated with Victorian notions of honour and duty, capturing the imagination of the public. Thus, Charge of the Light Brigade can be seen as a precursor to modern media coverage of warfare, influencing public perception and shaping historical narratives through its emotive and accessible depiction of a military engagement. Both poems interrogate the constructed nature of power and identity. While Tennyson's poem interrogates the glorification of war and heroism through media representation, Dark as Tissue scrutinizes the authority inherent in the act of documenting history and the selective nature of memory preservation. By linking these poems, one can explore the ways in which media, whether through poetry or paper, shapes and perpetuates narratives of power, identity, and memory in society. Charge of the Light Brigade by Alfred Lord Tennyson and war photographer by Carol Ann Duffy both delve into the theme of war and its representation in the media, showcasing the transformative power of images and narratives in shaping public perception. of the Light Brigade is an interesting ballad of a poem. It can be easily compared with Exposure, comparing it with Tissue and War. Photographer shows an extension and understanding beyond the poem and into context, however it is very hard to do, so be careful. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you found this helpful.